Scientists took a recipe that was 1,000 years old, a recipe for eye goop, written by medieval monks, and it killed a superbug that our most advanced antibiotics can't. This isn't a fairy tale. It happened in a real lab. The results shocked the researchers so much they didn't believe them at first. So how did a recipe everyone assumed was medieval nonsense end up beating modern medicine? Let's investigate. First, you need to understand the enemy. Why this is such a big deal. For most of the last century, antibiotics were a miracle. A cut that would have killed you in 1850 was suddenly nothing. But bacteria are alive, and living things adapt. Every time we use an antibiotic, a few bacteria survive. The toughest ones. Do that for 80 years, and you get superbugs. The worst of them has a name, MRSA. It's a type of staph bacteria that's become resistant to almost everything we throw at it. It infects wounds, lungs, blood, and it kills. Every year, antibiotic-resistant infections kill more than 1 million people worldwide. We're running out of new antibiotics. Bacteria are evolving faster than we can invent them. So scientists started looking in a very strange place for answers. The past. The story really begins about 1100 years ago, in Anglo-Saxon England. This was a world with no microscopes, no germ theory. Nobody even knew bacteria existed, and one of them was a medical text we now call Bald's Leech Book. Leech Book doesn't mean it was full of leeches. In Old English, a leech just meant a doctor. It was, basically, a doctor's handbook, page after page of remedies. Some of them sound completely insane to us today, and buried in there was a recipe for an eye infection, a wen, a kind of swelling or sty on the eye. The recipe had 4 ingredients, and they sound like the start of a witch's spell. Garlic, onion or leek, wine, and cow bile. Mix them together. Put them in a brass vessel. And here's the strange part. Let it sit for exactly 9 nights. To a modern doctor, this looks like superstition. Random kitchen scraps and a magic number. For 1,000 years, nobody took it seriously, until one scientist decided to actually try it. At the University of Nottingham, an Anglo-Saxon expert teamed up with a microbiologist. She could read the 1,000-year-old Old English. He could test it in the lab. Together, they decided to follow the recipe exactly. No shortcuts. What kind of wine? They tracked down a historic English vineyard. What kind of brass vessel? They couldn't risk modern contamination, so they used sheets of brass dipped in the mixture. The cow bile, well, you can actually still buy that. It's used to treat digestive problems. They left it to brew for 9 nights, just like the book said. What they pulled out was a dark, smelly, unpromising goop. Honestly, it looked like something you'd scrape off a drain. Then they took that goop and dropped it onto MRSA, the same superbug that shrugs off our strongest modern antibiotics. And they waited. Here's what they expected. Maybe a small effect, maybe nothing. It was a medieval recipe after all. What actually happened stunned them. The goop wiped out the MRSA almost completely. In their tests, the 1,000-year-old salve killed up to 90% of the MRSA bacteria. That's about as good as vancomycin, one of the strongest antibiotics doctors have for treating MRSA today. A recipe written before England even had a single university performed like a cutting-edge modern drug. They thought it might be a fluke, so they tested it on infected wounds in the lab. Same result. The salve tore through the bacteria. The lead microbiologist later said the data was so good and so surprising that they had to repeat it again and again before they could believe it. This was no accident. The medieval recipe actually worked. Because the why is a mystery in itself. The obvious guess? Garlic. Everyone knows garlic fights germs. So the team tested each ingredient on its own. Garlic by itself, onion by itself, wine by itself, bile by itself. And one by one, they failed. No single ingredient could kill the MRSA, not even the garlic. The magic only happened when all four were combined and left to brew for those 9 nights. Think about what that means. Somehow, over 1,000 years ago, without knowing what a bacterium even was, someone figured out that these 4 specific things, combined in this specific way, left for this specific amount of time, created something none of them could do alone. That's not a lucky guess. That's not randomly throwing herbs in a pot. That looks like experimentation, trial and error, real, careful medicine. The monks didn't know why it worked, but they knew that it worked, and they wrote it down. So let's clear up the myth. We have this picture in our heads of medieval medicine. Filthy, useless, leeches and prayers and bloodletting. People dying because their doctors were basically guessing. And to be fair, a lot of it was useless. Some of it was actively harmful. But that cartoon version isn't the whole truth. Some medieval remedies were the result of centuries of careful observation, real knowledge, passed down and refined generation after generation. We threw a lot of it away when modern medicine arrived. We assumed the old ways had nothing to teach us. Bald's eyesalve proves that assumption was wrong, and it raises a thrilling possibility. If one medieval recipe can kill a modern superbug, how many other forgotten remedies are sitting in old books right now? There's now an entire field for this. Scientists call it Ancientbiotics, hunting through history for medicine we forgot we had. The cure for the next superbug might not be in a high-tech lab. It might be on a dusty page, written by someone who died 1,000 years ago. Now, let's be honest, the way good detectives are honest. This doesn't mean you should brew medieval goop in your kitchen and rub it in your eye. What worked in the controlled lab is a long way from a safe, approved medicine. The salve still has to go through years of testing before it could ever treat a real patient. Science is careful for a reason, and not every old remedy is a hidden miracle. For every Bald's eye salve, there are 100 recipes that do nothing, or worse. But that's exactly why this story matters. It's not ancient people were secretly geniuses. And it's not old medicine was all nonsense. The truth is more interesting than either myth. It's that knowledge can hide in unexpected places, that the people who came before us were observing, testing, and recording, doing real science, even without the word for it, and that sometimes the most advanced thing we can do is listen to the past. 1,000 years ago, a monk dipped a piece of brass into a pot of garlic and bile, watched the moon rise 9 times, and wrote down what he learned. He had no idea that one day his recipe would outlive him, cross 1,000 years, and kill something he never even knew existed. We almost threw that knowledge away. We only got it back because someone was curious enough to ask, what if the old book was right?